Hey everyone, welcome to Coming and Going, a podcast that is designed to be a biblical guide to your parenting journey. And the name of the podcast itself comes straight to us from Scripture, where in Deuteronomy chapter 6, the Lord commands his people to teach the generations of his goodness, of his statutes, of his faithfulness as they are coming and going. And that is exactly what we are looking to do as parents, to be found faithful in teaching our kids in the ways of the Lord. Whether it is as we are in the dreaded drop-off loop or trying to navigate all the freedom that comes from summer and anything in between. Another beautiful gift that we have in Christ and in his word is the privilege that we have to not do this alone, to be able to come alongside one another, to encourage each other, to spur each other on to love and good works, and to remind each other of the truth of God's word. And that is exactly what we look to do here week in, week out. Well, technically month in and month out based off of when we release these episodes with this podcast. So thank you so much for listening, for tuning in. I hope that this is an encouragement to you. It's been an encouragement to me to be able to host this podcast. And we are kind of in the middle of a series we're pushing pause on to drop a special episode, knowing that summer is amongst us, and really just wanted to have a conversation about making the most of summer, and really just having a broader conversation about being intentional in the place that God has put you and your family as you look to raise your children in the way of the Lord and to share the gospel with others. And so as we know, in a world full of distractions, how can we as parents learn to intentionally lead our kids to engage more in their schools, neighborhoods, and surrounding? And while we talked about navigating social media with our kids and students on a previous episode with Aussie Dave, which is an awesome episode to take a few moments and revisit or to check out for the first time, but we want to make this conversation and take it to the next level. Spend some time talking about how we can move beyond the distractions or just the different things that cause us to get caught up in our own lives, and really help our kids engage in the world around them in a way that honors God and allows them to see his goodness and sovereignty in every aspect of their lives, especially in the place that he has put your family. And so today, I've invited some friends to join me in on this conversation.
Woohoo.
Hey, Joe.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for listening to my monologue.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. You're like, I just tuned in, focused. You're like, is he ever going to look up at me?
No, it was great. It's good to hear the context of what we're getting into.
Yeah. No, it's a joy to have you guys be a part of it. This is a joy to be a part of this podcast. And really just have these conversations. As you guys know, as you've had these conversations with others, it's both beneficial to just facilitate it in hopes that's an encouragement to others. And so, you know what? I've committed so many host faux pas so far because I've not even said my own name, which is Joe, the pastor here at Woodside. And I have the privilege of hosting this podcast and working alongside students and kids and families for years. And I didn't even introduce you guys. So Nick and Kim.
Here we are.
Hey, here we go.
It's a joy to have you guys here. I'd love for you to take a few moments and share with us about who you are personally, as parents, as husband and wife, obviously professionally as well, but also share, you guys are coming our way recently to Michigan from California and having just gone through a huge season of transition and change, of leading your family to a new place. And so we'd love for you to take a few moments and share with us, knowing some might be going through monumental decisions right now, but really just as the family of God, to hear of the sovereignty of God is what's brought you here. So the floor is yours.
Okay. So personal introduction and then like the move story.
How we got here.
How we got here. Well, do you want to go first? Do you want me to?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll go.
Test. How long have we been married?
16 years. I was ready for that one.
This is
That's what I say in the mirror every day, just in case it comes.
Hopefully with a smile.
Like you just have the marks on the wall as each day.
Like Shawshank.
Like Shawshank.
Gracious. Oh, dear.
What a beautiful life sentence.
Yes.
Totally.
That belongs on a t-shirt.
Every mark is my commitment.
Amen. There you go.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, I'm Nick Bogardus. I'm the new executive pastor here at the Troy campus. Was born and raised in California. I'm a California boy. My 45 years of life, 4 of them have been spent out of that state.
Wow.
We'll probably get to that in a minute. So that's a big part of who I am. We're going to be talking about place, and so that's a big part of that. Professionally, my career is kind of divided in halves. There's a marketplace half where I built a business in the music industry, managing artists for a decade. I also was VP of marketing most recently at a church tech company and led the marketing team there. But I also have a decade of ministry experience, planting 2 churches. Kim and I, did that together. Was at Mars Hill in Seattle, planted their campus in Orange County. It was it was their first plant across state lines, I believe. Wow. And then we planted an independent church out of that one. And so there's just a split background there between marketplace and ministry. That's me.
Yeah. I was also born in California, but had a very different upbringing to Nick. And my mom moved my brother and I to East Texas when I was in 2nd grade.
Yeah.
And so I stayed there until college and then moved back to California. But definitely a culture shock going from Southern California to East Texas and
Can imagine.
not understanding their accent very much because couldn't understand what they were saying to me. And yeah, I went to a private Christian school. I got saved in junior high and there were not many churches to choose from in my town with one red light. And so when college came, I was like, I want to go to a place where I'm surrounded by other Christians that really want to live for God and let that be shown through their actions, which I had a harder time doing in the Bible Belt. That was harder to find in my small town. So went to Azusa Pacific and absolutely loved it. Went on some of their mission trips. Never thought I would get married. My plan was to just do international work. Yeah. Just Mother Teresa my life around the world. And then
you're still Mother Teresaing your life. You're just doing it in a smaller environment.
Just with a man who has marks on the wall for years we've been married. It's great. But yeah, 3 weeks before I decided, we went on a few mission trips. I fell in love with it, decided to sign up for the Peace Corps. So this is where I pull Nick out of Orange County because 3 weeks before I leave for my assignment to go to Mongolia for 2.5 years was supposed to be our goodbye hangout. Ends up being our first date by the end of that night. I was literally just saying bye to everybody, like, peace out, never going to see you again, never coming back to America. And then this guy, by the end of that, I was like, crap. Okay, sorry, I shouldn't say that on this family podcast. Like, shoot, I think we're going to get married. He's like, yeah, me too. I was like, okay, we'll figure this out. And so Nick went with me. Well, I went by myself, was overseas for a while. Again, a big change of place. Yeah. And then 9 months into that, we were married. And then Nick came to Mongolia with me for the remainder of my service. And then we went to Seattle, did Mars Hill, planted the church, had 3 kids in 4 years. And now I bake and homeschool and do leadership development and coaching, podcast with Nick, and I wear many hats. It's super fun. Yeah.
So you've lived in some wildly different places.
Yes.
Now you're in Michigan. I think what you've hopefully picked up from Michigan, I think I've put it forth. We love Michigan.
Yes.
Michiganders love Michigan.
Especially in summer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, totally.
Trust. We love all. Yeah, we do. It's awesome.
They don't go outside in the winter, but in the summer, they're
Some
like,
do.
love this place.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Feel free to give any sort of pros and cons, observations.
Yeah.
We talked about it pre-show that we'd weave in it somehow, and so here we are. But important as we're talking about place, and we're going to get, you guys hear us saying that a little bit, we're going to get more into it in a second. But yeah, I'd love to hear your initial impressions on the place that you now call home, or starting to call home.
Yes. I like to look at place through the lens of a few things that I think shape it. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going to riff here. I think there's a few things. One, geography, I think, plays a place, and we don't think about that. So even Nick mentioning that, we moved here in December. Trying to say hi to our neighbors was really hard because they were like, get out of my car and get in the house and get warm. Yep. And so that's interesting. I think geography plays a big part of it. And then that'll shape the people. That shapes the activities you do. That shapes how you hang out. The different activities and how you engage with people in those different seasons. So geography is definitely plays a place. And I think people collect there based on industry. And so industry shapes a place, especially coming to Michigan. You think of the big three. Yes, it's a huge part of it. You see that. I didn't think I would see something so pronounced as you would where we're in California and you're shaped by LA and Hollywood and that image conscious industry, and that has a huge part of it, or the tech up in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And, you know, then we lived in Seattle, and that place, we used to laugh going to coffee shops because you would see people and they would have a New York Times and a Seattle Times. And what else? A Wall Street Journal. Like
there was like an Aristotle book.
Aristotle, that's what they're sitting at their coffee table doing. And then you go to California, it's like, you won't believe what she said. Girl, let me tell you about my day. And it was just highly relational and conversational. And so you see these industries and these places and the geography that shape a particular place. And when you come into it, it can be a bit of a shock. And we like to talk about going through phases when you're in a place, because that can be helpful too, of recognizing what's there. There's like a honeymoon phase where like everything is awesome. You know, like we land in Michigan in winter and our kids are like, snow is real? You can have a white Christmas? We've only seen this in the movies. Like their minds are blown.
Just Bing Crosby on repeat.
Yeah, totally.
Well, all the Christmas lights, the bright lights show.
Yeah,
in Rochester.
Yeah, they said they love Christmas here. It was so cute. And you're just in awe.
A lot of whimsy.
It's very different. I mean, we're wearing tank tops at Christmas in California, you know, because you have these random heat spells. So very different. Then you start to see the nuances of, okay, what? This is very different. And it turns from like a joy to maybe like a frustration or you can't understand it. And
why do they do it like this? Because you're comparing it to where you came from.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. And then about a year in is when you find your sweet spot. You start asking good questions. You understand that there's stories and reasons behind why they do the things they do. Yeah. You understand the industries, the geography, all that has shaped these people, and then you start to find your place in it.
Yeah.
We've seen that to be true over and over from all these different moves.
It's been helpful for us because it gives you a time frame to be patient with. You know, I'm not going to find my place for a year. Okay, cool. Yeah. We're 6 months in. Do I feel frustrated and like disoriented? A little. That's normal.
Yeah, it's normal. Cool. Yeah,
it helps keep your bearings though too, not to get lost in despair in those moments.
Yeah,
and as you're sharing it, it speaks to the principle of being present, being patient, learning, and we kind of have this tension at times. Like, hey, we want to learn we want to meet our neighbors. Well, weather-wise, difficult to do so. We know in the day and age that we live in, even technology makes that all the more difficult to do so. You guys are also parents to 3 wonderful kids. And so you guys are navigating being in a new place, wanting to practice presence, but also with 3 kids whose attention span for kids can span all sorts of different things. But as well as they're feeling this pressure of wanting to find their place or wanting to engage online, social media, so on and so forth. As we get ready to talk about place and we think through this for parents and navigating it with their kids and teenagers, there seems to be a pressure for them to have cell phones, social media, younger and younger. Why do you think that is? And how have you been navigating that?
Can I add another layer real quick to the place piece
do.
and then get to the phone question? Because I think Kim's right in understanding how a place was shaped is very important to understanding how to adapt to it, right? And so, even coming into, like she mentioned going from Mongolia to Seattle, what we saw in the coffee shops there in Orange County, part of that is understanding the way that like California was shaped. And I did like a deep dive into that when we first planted, and just understanding that people came to California for the gold rush. They came for, when the freeways were completed from LA to from San Francisco to Southern California for largely, the entertainment industry and stuff like that. Like, so there is like there's a frontier, history to California where people left traditional places that gave them roots to come there to find a new sense of identity or success or something like that. And that's what happened in 1840, 1850, 1860. It's still true.
And so permeated throughout.
And so that kind of history has shaped the place, and it continues with the people who come there to shape it. So it's helpful to see that, like there's in California, there is what they call fluid identities, that we've abandoned traditional things that defined us, and we're coming to make our own new life. In Michigan, in coming here, I got a book on the sociology of religion of the Midwest, and then I reread the chapter on from the 11 Nations book. I forgot the guy's name, Eric something, but he wrote a book on how the founding of America in different regions shapes who we are as a country. Anyway, what was interesting about that one is it doesn't identify Michigan with the Midwest. It actually identifies it with the East Coast, and it connects it more in line culturally with, Boston, New York, stuff like that.
Interesting.
Which I think is true because as we've come in here, like there is a high emphasis on education and intellect and traditional job performance, that kind of comes out of what Kim was saying. America can thank Michigan for the Industrial Revolution for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And so this place shaped the backbone and growth of the American economy through World War II up until the tech boom of the 90s, you know? And so that is still here. Like you can feel it in your engagement with people. Like they are more reserved, but there is a degree of sophistication that's there.
That's a little different.
Unique.
That separates it from the
California,
South.
for sure, and the South. A totally stupid one that we notice a lot is people are very aggressive drivers. Like driving in California is an adventure for sure.
Yeah.
You guys
It's
use
just speed in California.
In California, if you use the horn on somebody, it is a deeply personal attack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here, it's just like a wave. Like
Oh, yeah.
hi.
Let's move along. I'm
I honked at
communicating.
somebody today.
Oh no! Like when we first were, they hate us. Is it because we have the California plate on the
Totally.
car
We
still?
thought
Like,
it was-
why are they honking like crazy?
Yeah.
So good.
So there's just those things coming from the outside that are kind of funny. But
They're super fun.
No one else knows how to drive but Michiganders.
yes, you're welcome for the cars, everybody.
Yeah, we also get
we'll
to
use
decide
them
how we use them.
appropriately.
Yeah. Great.
So to the
man,
phone
that's so funny.
question, with your phone, why is it such a pressure? Was the question?
Yeah.
Why is it a pressure?
What do you think, babe?
Oh, man, that can go a number of different ways. From a parent's perspective, I think there's a pressure of alleviation. If you even think about how family dynamics have changed, where parents, you used to live in a multi-generational environment, or you wouldn't go too far. I forget what the actual mileage is, but the average person before, like the 60s would only live maybe 5 to 10 miles away from where they were born. Okay, that's no longer the case. It's everywhere. So there's like an expansion where maybe there is a need or a deep desire to still remain connected to those people and to be on. And because life changes at a different rate than it used to and people move farther away, maybe that's part of the motivation. But along with that is maybe you don't have the help. We've moved now to dual income households, and you don't have your parents living or near you that they could help with the children, and all these things where I think I see parents use it a lot as an alleviation to pressure, stress, wanting a break. And so they're giving these devices to these children without thinking of the implications of what could happen and how that can disrupt their place and being present. Those are the two that kind of come to mind. Helping them stay connected because people do move, there is distance, but also alleviation from doing hard work.
There's a social pressure for connection with their peers. I think I've seen a lot. I think you're right about the kind of like a distraction in stressful environment, like a restaurant or like something.
Restaurants.
It's hard.
Yes.
I think what's important for parents to think about as they consider the pressure of the phone is it's not a neutral tool. It has an shaping effect on the users. There's a whole field of study called media ecology that's fun to consider. That it looks at how when you introduce a tool into an ecosystem, how it changes the environment around it, right? Like, so we were nomads until we had shovels and rakes and could be agrarian. Like tools shape us, right? And so how does Twitter shape how we interact? How does FaceTime and the ability to be endlessly and limitlessly connected to one another shape how we relate? Like it has a formative effect and it's not neutral. And so I think you have to consider that before you adopt a tool like that. Is like, well, how does it shape? And am I okay with that? And how would I mitigate against that? I just think it's helpful to call that out and not see it as as just a device. It's not just a device. It is a biased tool that is engineered to elicit
Change
interaction
how you do
and
things.
change. Exactly, totally. Even like, did you see that Apple commercial from this week for the iPad?
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievably on the nose.
Yep.
It's a what would you call it? A compactor.
Yep.
If you picture like a junkyard compactor that crushes a car, it's a compactor, but within the compactor are pianos, metronomes, buckets of paint, like all the things you would use to create art or create culture. Yeah. This thing is compacting into a thin device that you can hold in your hand, and it just makes. They're arguing for efficiency,
Yeah.
And what they don't
all
miss,
these things are right here in this.
Yes, but what they're missing is like it is making the again on the nose example that it is doing away with a whole world of interaction that humanity has been doing for centuries. Is that
tangible, tactile ways of expressing that God-given?
So they're not neutral. It's helpful to understand that. I also just think like if the listeners are not aware, you cannot miss the work of people like Sherry Turkle or Jonathan Haidt recently, Abigail Schreier. These are scholars who have done a ton of work recently on the effects of devices and particularly social media on younger people, and their findings are terrifying. And they're backed up by data and research. Like the
don't think you're immune.
You're not immune. Like to think, it's
Yeah.
foolishness to think we won't be impacted. You will be impacted. And so if you're not familiar with those people, they're easy to find. But in particular, Jonathan Haidt, I think he might have just gotten one of like Times People of the Year for his work in this area. But the bottom line is the increase in depression, loneliness, suicidal ideation, suicides, drug use, all of that stuff can be connected to the introduction of, actually there was even one who do you remember who was that talked about the earlier a phone is introduced into a kid's life, the worse adult they're going to be.
The worse,
the more unhealthy of an adult. Anyway.
It's finally been around long enough that you can have years of information on this.
Yes.
So, I mean, are there pros and cons to it? Yes. So even in our move, okay, we left our closest friends and family back home. Is technology useful for that? 100%.
Yeah.
I love being able to FaceTime his family. I love being able to do that. But we've had to do with the kids, which has been really hard. So again, we're in that 6-month period. We are now, I check in with the kids, like, where were you at on our levels of grief? They're like, still in the anger stage. We're angry. You took away our friends, right? Like they are having to navigate, like you described, the newness, but also there is a shaping and a change that is inevitable that will have to happen. How am I, and I've had to ask myself, how do I allow this little bit of technology that they do get? We don't use a ton of it at all, but the little bit that they do have to engage with their old friends so that they feel some level of connection, but also not so much that they don't want to engage here. That's been our battle the last few months. And it's hard. It sounds like a terrible mom, but they'll say, can I call this person? I'd say, no, you already talked to them once this week. Focus on who you want to find at youth group. And the look in their eyes is like, you want to hit me in the face. Great.
Shooting laser beams out at you.
Yes, totally. But it is finding that balance of how can I use it for good when it's necessary, but also set extreme limitations on it so that I can do what I'm meant to do here. This is what we feel.
Well, the practical example that you just shared speaks to the principle that you shared earlier as well, is that as parents, there's a propensity that we have to want to alleviate that in those moments. So it's like, this is a way of pacifying, or even it's a good thing, right? They want to connect with friends, but there's still 100%. This pressure then that you have to put on yourself or you bear as a parent. But what we speak, even the commercial itself speaks to, is then pushing the engagement towards that and knowing, and we're using really phones and social media because that's a primary way in which any of us can disengage with the place that God has put us in. But we primarily see it with our kids, is that it removes them from the tangible, the tactile, and really it removes them from not just the place, but the people that fill the place, and then how that obviously shapes who they are and the opportunities that we even have to whether grow in the midst of a faith community or share our faith with others as we just learn more and share in this beautiful, robust gift of life. And so,
That's right. Look up and look out, we say.
That's good. Good. And that's kind of this gets into the next question here is why is it important for our kids and our students to engage in the place around them, the place that God has put them?
Yeah.
Cool.
There's a
So
lot of good work there on theology of place, which you could dive into. It's
which
great.
we'll dive into. So I think it's helpful for the listener to know that I'm looking at paper. And so I'll try to keep it
please do.
as informal and casual as I can.
Give us
but
a
also
framework for
informative.
what we're about to dive into.
Well, it came from Pastor Chris was teaching at the All Staff last month, and he mentioned being in California. He was visiting Biola for his daughter, and he mentioned driving at PCH because Yodi's from Huntington Beach, right?
Yeah.
And so they were talking about, PCH used to drive up there together. And I was just thinking about, I know every curve on that road, because even the last, one, growing up surfing and going to the beach there, but also the last marathon we trained for, all of my long runs with my friends were all a PC. I would ran that. I know every dip and turn and hill and bathroom stop on that road. And it was a reminder of how precious place is to me. And so we talked through this in the Troy staff meeting. And so we looked at a few things. One, so for listeners, as we talk about the pressure for kids to be on devices and to be detached from their particular place, I want to help anchor you in what does the Bible say about the importance of place? Yeah. And these are things that we have heard or read as we go through our Bible reading, and yet sometimes we file them in the back of our mind and we miss how important they are and how prevalent they are. And so let me just kind of walk you through the importance of place in Scripture, if that's all right. The first is just a reminder that you were made for relationships in place. Like, where does the Bible start? The Bible starts in a place. God makes a world, and he makes a garden, and then he puts the people in there. And so at the very beginning of everything, place seems to be very important. He seems to be all about making it and putting people in it, right? After they sin in Genesis 3, what's the punishment? But removal from that place. They were exiled from the place that God has made. And so part of the fallen experience in this world, or experience in this fallen world, is that we don't feel at home, that we feel displaced.
Yep.
You also then see God interacting with people in a place. Like you get, he shows up to Abraham in Ur. He shows up to, Moses in Egypt at the burning bush. Yep. Throughout Scripture, he's showing up to particular people in particular places. He promises a particular land as a gift, right? That was supposed to be the blessing to his people. I'm going to give you the land from the river to the sea, and everything in between for the generations to come. Jerusalem was seen as the city of God, and I'm not citing all the Scripture here, but I hope as you're hearing this, listeners, it's bringing to mind all of the names of places, all of the people, and the ways that God interacts in these places.
Yes.
He gives them the land. But then, of course, they sin, they run away from him, and what's the punishment for that? But exile, right? The Babylonians come, the Persians come.
Removal from the place.
Removal from the place again.
Yep.
Again.
And again, and again.
And again, and again. Totally.
For a few hundred years.
And then, fast forwarding from there, at the end of everything in Revelation. So the beginning of everything is a garden and a place. At the end of everything is also a place, but a new city, a new heaven, and a new earth. So from beginning to end, place is very important to God. And from beginning to end, he puts people in these places and he interacts with them.
Yes.
And so we're made at the bottom of everything, listeners, is that we are made to be in a place, in relationship with God and others in that place. And so part of being human is that.
But I think you can interject here.
Yep.
None of those places were meant to fully satisfy, right? So there is always this longing for the end when things are made new, and there is eternal peace in place.
Yes.
Because the longing can come from there is no perfect place yet. And so as we go to these different places, you can find these pros and cons of every place and the people that are in that place. Yeah. Things that they do really well, things that they really don't. And then other places, tap into other ones. So it is fun to explore different places. And I think that's one of the joys of us as we've gone internationally and all over America is seeing the goodness that we can find in each one of those places. And it's not meant to replace the other place that you came from, but letting those hold that proper balance and that tension of what can I hold on to and keep that was good from that one place as I go into the next.
That's good.
Yeah, that was something we did with the kids coming here, right? We tried to remind them, we have friends from Mongolia, even that you're still in contact with, right? We have friends from Seattle that are still very dear to us that we would not have met had we not moved there.
Right.
Yeah.
We have friends from, California from planting churches and living in different homes that we still hold very dear. And that makes the move very hard. That's what makes it heartbreaking and deeply painful and challenging. And yet sweet because we still have those people.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the move here hopeful. And then we go to them and we're like, okay, so there are people in Michigan in this place that you haven't met yet who God has ordained
to use
that
in your
you are
life
going
in
to,
some
he's going to
capacity.
use them in your life and he's going to use you in their life. And so there's hope in that too.
100%. We've done that also just practically speaking. I don't know if you guys have ever done this exercise because I know we'll talk about it with Summer, but we do that with family traditions. So when Nick and I got married, we sat down and we just took 30 minutes each and kind of itemized what are things that meant a lot to me growing up for different holidays or seasons. And then we would go through and say, what things did I not enjoy? And then we decided, how do we combine those two things together to start our own? And so now we've done that with the kids where after a holiday or a season, so going into summer, we'd say, hey, what are your favorite things that you like that we do as a family in summer? And we make that list and make sure we check those off. So we can get into that in more detail, but it's a good reminder too of keeping the good from all those places. And you can do that across the board with seasons, traditions, family upbringings, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So we know that we see scripturally, we've been created for place.
Yeah.
Place is very important.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the distortion of it
Yeah.
through the sin and the removal of it.
Yeah, so I can do that. Like some of the distortions of this. So if it's true that we are made as humans to be in relationship with God and others in a particular place, there's some distortions. One is that place is everything, and that's where above everything else, your identity is in the place that you
Which
are.
is some of the stuff that you might navigate currently with your kids because they feel like this place was everything for us.
Yes.
And now
and it's important and it's good, but it's not ultimate, right? So it can be like, I'm an open-minded Pacific Northwesterner. I'm a laid-back Californian. I'm a cosmopolitan New Yorker.
I'm a perfect driver Michiganer.
driving Michigan. That's right. Totally.
Just filling in the blanks.
So good.
But this place is everything. If you want to take it to its like most extreme, this is where you get like nationalism. This is where you get racism. This is where it's like my people, my place are ultimate and everything outside of it is wrong. We would hear that and go, obviously that's a distortion,
right?
But we do it in smaller ways, like personally, right? The second distortion is that place is nothing, that it actually doesn't matter. And this is what we were getting at with the phones and stuff, right? That we are increasingly drawn out of being in a place to living in a space. Yeah. And this is where I think parents who are listening need to be really attuned to this dynamic because this is what our kids are growing up in, untethered from physical place and physical people and far more attached. So actually, here's an example. One of my really good friends, we were talking about, he's very into Web3 and that whole world. And his kids, they play Fortnite and other games like that. And he was telling me that when they have birthdays coming up, he asks them like, do you want like Jordans for you to wear to school? Or do you want money to buy shoes for your character in the game? He said every single time they choose the shoes for the game, not themselves, for their avatar, for their digital version that they engage with their friends and online. That's the pressure that parents are up against to live in this space.
Tangible item, untethered, no actual investment, anything of value or that you can hold on to. Outside of what it exists in this digital space.
In the digital space, your image in a digital space, as opposed to the one that you're creating in real time with people around you.
Yeah. Wow.
And the pressures are immense for those who are listening, again, like you might feel it, but when you name it, you go, "Whoa, it's bigger than I thought." It feels like a tidal wave, because you have to consider, like, Facebook depends on you interacting with people you don't physically relate with regularly. Amazon depends on you shopping, not in physical stores, but online, right? Apple, Verizon, AT&T all depend on you interacting with people digitally and not face to face. There's an economy around us that's built on pulling us out of place. But there's also a part of us that likes it. And I think this is helpful to call out in the distortions, right?
Yeah.
That we actually don't mind living in the space sometimes. We like living in the space because of anonymity, flexibility,
convenience,
mobility, convenience.
Yep.
I can just unfollow, block. I can disregard. I can mute. I can do whatever.
Yeah. I'm busy. I
keeps you
just
from
get
having to
shipped
do
to
the
the
hard
house
thing.
as
It's
opposed to go
easier.
find it somewhere.
Yep.
It's easier. And so when we talked about this in the staff meeting, what we talked about was like living like a tourist, right? Versus actually being a citizen or a member of a place. And so the reality is, if you're a tourist, you can't be patient or long suffering. You can't bear with weakness. You can't forgive. You can't be loyal or faithful. A tourist doesn't do any of those things when they visit a city or a town, right? You get off your cruise ship and you go visit whatever, like little village. Like, you're not doing any of that stuff.
And you get your curated area.
That's right.
Yes.
And then you exit out. Yeah.
And so the way we put it was like, a placeless person cannot love their neighbor. They cannot be faithful. They cannot be long suffering. What it turns you into is not just a tourist, but a consumer, which is what a tourist just consumes, right? And so again, you have to be so aware of like how this stuff is shaping us, because it's turning you not into someone who's contributing something, who is enduring and adding value to a place and to people over time, but someone whose default mode is to take and run. And that's
as opposed to being a producer.
Yeah, that's corrosive. That's corrosive to communities. That's corrosive to families. That's corrosive to marriages. There is nothing good that comes from that kind of behavior. And yet that's the power behind this pull into space. So that's some of that.
Yeah. So we kind of even see in there a little bit why it's then hard for kids, students to engage in space, right? And because they're always in their place, and as opposed to into space, like, hey, video games, those are fun, right?
Totally.
But the more time you spend in there, the more value that you're adding there, and it becomes quickly a thing in which, like, oh, well, I want to feel even more value, even more worth here, and so they're building up there and taking away from the place that they've actually been put in. So where is this the importance of helping our kids move beyond the distractions? Because I think you're getting into it a little bit with some of the distortions of, well, we're robbing relationships at this point in time. So how do we help then our kids, especially in a season that we said we want to drop this in the summer, knowing that they have a lot of free time going on. Say, how do we help remove the distractions, remove the alleviation of, man, my kids are now home 24/7.
Oh, it feels relentless.
And it would be easier to just be like, okay, I don't know, just go to your room, do whatever. I'm like, okay, how are we inviting
Joe, it'd
beyond
be
the
easier for
distraction?
Jesus to not go to the cross. I'm sure
We
he
all
thought that
have
too.
joy set before us. We all just got to suffer to get there.
Whoa, she actually just made it the perfect point. Like the good, like we just talked about all the bad news and the challenges of not living as we were designed in a place, right? But the good news is that part of the gospel, a lens through which you can view the gospel, is that part of our redemption was secured by a particular Jesus in a particular place. When he hung on the cross, the sign said Jesus of Nazareth, right? Like he ministered to particular people in particular places, and he did so perfectly for us, and he died in our place. Particularly, like there's place even wrapped up in that. And so I think, tying together what you were saying about the different places, there's a reminder that we're saved like that, but we're also saved to that. Like that God has worked faithfully in our lives in Seattle. He worked faithfully in our lives in Orange County. He'll work faithfully in our life here. And so I think it's, I'm just kicking this off. You run from here. But I think you're good at this. I'm just reminding the kids, like, no, he's always been like good to move where we are. So be where we are and watch him move. Like,
that's right.
Is a fair way to put it.
And he's still in this place with us.
Yes, 100%.
He's moved with you.
Yes, he has moved with us. That's absolutely right. Again, I think we have to question our values. What do we care about? What's meaningful to us? because those are the first things to sacrifice for convenience, right?
Yeah.
So if we say, all right, time together as a family is very valuable, how do we make sure that's a priority? Because then your schedule should always, your behavior should come out of those values. So if we say that we all agree, we sit down, like, what's meaningful to you? What do you care about? And you can help them see as a family, we care about these things. That means our time, attention, energy, and effort should be going towards those things.
Yes.
If there's extra time, great. Or there's alleviate. I mean, we do family movie nights on Friday. Like, we're not against tech completely or these things that we could do, right? But seeing it particular to place, I think, is doing the hard work as a parent of helping them look up and out and saying, if God really made everything, there's places and things and people that exist just in this place.
Yeah.
How can we enjoy those? And also being mindful of, like, we never know how long God keeps us in those places.
Yeah.
And I know that's a little stranger maybe for Michiganders, because a lot of them have been here for a long time and they put down roots, and maybe they leave for a while, and a lot of them come back because there's a sweetness and a goodness that they enjoy in their place that they come back to. But we really don't know. We don't know how long we have or how long someone will be in our life before God removes that person or that relationship. And so it really is, we hit home with the kids all the time. How can we do the most good we possibly can in the limited amount of time that God gives us?
Yeah.
And just saying, all right, we have this summer, and this summer, what's the most meaningful? What do you love most about Michigan? And making sure that those things are done,
Yeah.
And we have a giant list. I mean, Michiganders have been amazing at, okay, you ready for summer? Here's like 900 things you have to do.
Can
And
you give us a little hit? Do you have any off the top of your head?
Oh, I mean,
Bear
Mackinac-
Dunes,
Mackinac's
Traverse
always
City,
on top.
Mackinac, Turnip Rock,
Yeah.
all
Oh,
the
gosh,
hikes,
yeah.
all the lakes,
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
water, all the things.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for them to experience
Yeah.
that newness. And I hope you guys don't get sick of it. In the same way, like, we probably got sick of the beach where, 12 years in, I'm like, if I
But
find
that's
any
because
more
you can go
sand
to the
in my
beach
car.
12 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Michigan, we got 4, so we
You just really hunker down and
Yeah.
make sure it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's good. And I hope that doesn't get lost on people that doesn't exist. My kids have never seen a firefly. I'm like, I can't wait.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
Again, it's like they think it doesn't exist. They think it's like LA stage,
They're
just
wonderful.
movies.
Yeah.
I can't wait. They've
Yeah.
never seen that. They want to experience that. So there's these little things, again, of topography, geography, and people.
Yeah.
Who are
Yeah.
the people you want to see? What are the memories you want to make? What are the
That's
good
good.
things that we can find just in this place?
That's good.
That
That's
doesn't
good for the
exist?
summer stuff. I was thinking about even some of the things that do practically in the place to kind of give us roots there. I'm thinking about, like, we go on walks,
Oh, yeah.
regularly as a family. We'll just, after dinner, take the dog and just go walk around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we get to learn the streets.
Yeah.
One day people will say hi to us and we'll get to make friends with our neighbors.
We have a couple.
Yeah, we got a couple. But it just gets us into our little town,
Yeah.
I think that's
And there's little streets that they like where the kids will
Yeah.
pick out, I love that house.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't see Tudors very often in California.
Yeah.
What about that brick Tudor do you like, or that colonial style home? You don't see those. So even the way they make homes, things
Yeah.
look different. And so getting out and making them look around and be mindful of what they're experiencing and really tapping into senses. I know that sounds silly, but that's something we do as a family all the time in different seasons, whether that's summer. What are things you want to taste? What
Yeah.
are things you like to see? What are things you want to feel? All those things you can kind of get into, smells, and
because your memories are always
because your memories are
associated with
attached,
senses.
yeah, to senses. And so doing that, by what they see in a neighborhood, doing that with the meals that we cook, that we share with people. We had fun having people over, and Nick's mom's side is Cuban, so making a Cuban meal and
Yeah.
being like, you probably don't get Cuban food here, right? Very
No,
often. Yeah.
no.
So it's like, how can we also introduce and give of what we have to the people in this
How do you
place?
enrich a place
Yeah,
by adding
enrich
things
it
that you've
also.
picked up from other places?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
What I think is so beautiful for us to hear and see, and even thinking that, hey, using your senses, because place versus space, the digital space is not multisensory.
No.
It's somewhat sensory, hearing, seeing, Vision Pro's trying to make it so it seems
Right.
even more real, but it's still just a facade as
Yep.
opposed to the tangible, tactile street that I walk down, in which I
Yeah.
get to enjoy either God's natural creation through the sky and the trees and the fireflies, or his creation is expressed through his creation and homes that are built and how they're kept, or
Eating
even
that
through
Yates
people.
donut.
Yeah. You say, people might be in that place for a while, but through the seasons and how each season you're experiencing some new goodness in new way, or through the different people that you meet and so on. So to anchor them back to the place to ultimately be able to experience the goodness of God all the more.
That's right.
I think another way
Exactly
to frame this is something that we talk about a lot, which is the theology of the ordinary. Like that a lot of times, whether through the way that we describe the Christian life in the church or what social media presents to us, we expect life to be extraordinary all the time.
Yeah.
And yet God seems fit to be present in the totally normal, ordinary parts of our life.
Yeah.
And part of the being in a place is being okay with the ordinary and actually looking for the ordinary. And so, even like going on these walks, right? I'm thinking like, I mentioned the PCH picture at the beginning that kind of prompted this discussion. And I'm thinking about like driving north on the 55 from the beach back home. I can like picture every single
Big billboard sign. No, just kidding.
on the right hand side would be all the hills, the orange hills, and they'd be green in the fall and spring, and they'd be brown every other time.
Yep.
And on the left would be like desolate suburban sprawl,
Yeah.
and like downtown Santa Ana, right? But then we're doing that the same thing here. Like I'm thinking, like as I'm running Paint Creek, I'm learning every little curve in there. Like I'm appreciating the things that we see there and how the seasons affect the creek and the trail and stuff like that. Like there's kind of joy in those normal things that you take for granted.
Well, I think what's good earlier too is what you shared, Kim, in helping to have them say, hey, what are the things that we want to prioritize? Both what is it that we value? Then once you, as a family, have shaped those, these are our values. This is what we want to prioritize, what we spend our time on. And if we have extra time, great. But we know that this is what's going to inform our decision making, which as you begin to build off those principles, I'm assuming that it does give you greater cause for pause in regards to what are we adding to our calendar?
Yes. That's right.
What are we allowing ourselves to be caught up and busy in? Because if it doesn't, if it works against these principal things,
That's right.
then we're not going to pursue them because we don't want to rob ourselves of even just enjoying the ordinary. Because there's a lot of beauty on this short walk that we take after dinner. And so parents, as you're hearing this, as you're thinking through your summer, I hope that you're encouraged by thinking, all right, what's our to-do list? What's our summer bucket list?
That's good.
What are our family values and priorities? Because knowing God has put us in a place to want to enjoy his glory, to experience his goodness, and then to share it with others. Because as you were sharing earlier, I'm just thinking Ephesians 2:10, for there are good works that he has set up for us to do. And those are tied to a people and a place.
That's right.
So there are only good things that you experience as you're on a walk and you meet some neighbors. You're like, all right, there's something good that can happen here. Or just, again, giving God glory for his goodness as you guys are doing so. And so, guys, other thoughts as we got to maybe wrap this conversation, because it's such a beautiful topic. It's a complex topic, but there's so many ways in which you can just simplify our life and give us some tools to think through. You know what? As opposed to being reactionary and alleviating something in the moment by just go to your room, play your video games, do whatever.
Oh, man.
And sometimes I love video games, man. I grew up on N64. It's awesome. It's incredible. Like, so
I grew up on Duck Hunt. That aged me.
Even in the winter, like I love playing Mario Party with my daughter. It's a fun family thing for us to do. Right? There's great ways to technology, but it's being able to say, okay, how are we bringing back to the tangible place that God has put us in so that we can just experience his goodness all the more.
That's right.
Other thoughts you guys have that you want to leave the listeners with, whether practical things, principal things, top 3 pizza places in Michigan?
No, I think it's just being reminded again of our limitations and recognizing summer is a short season. It feels like the days are very long and endless, right? When you're home with the kids all day or they're home and not at school or those routines, but it is a short amount of time. How do I make the most of it with these people? Because they'll be teenagers before we know it. They won't be toddlers. They'll be adults. They won't be in this house. I won't have the opportunity to shape them. So how can I do the most damage in the best way possible of like helping them see how God has wired them, their goodness and what they can both learn from a place and give to a place.
Yeah.
So I think it's finding that balance as a parent of the consuming and producing. How can we enjoy and take and, eat these Michigan apples or these cherries and enjoy it? And then what are things that I can learn and do that I couldn't do other places?
Yeah.
Help them see that.
It's a paradox. Summer might be short, but parenting these kids in these phases is far shorter.
Yeah.
Like in the scope.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes by a lot quicker.
So fast.
Summer it does.
That's right.
That's good.
Nick, other thoughts?
I think that's a great place to land that part of the conversation for sure. I
good.
can't top that. That's great. Yeah.
What a joy and gift we hope this has been for you guys as you've been listening, and may it help you and your family set rhythms that exist just beyond the summer into your day-to-day lives as you look to remind your kids, your students, of the goodness of God as you are coming and going. And so we hope this has been encouragement to you. As always, if there's any other way that we can be an encouragement to you, feel free to reach out. We'll look to put some more resources in the copy of this episode, some of the things that we've mentioned that may be helpful to you, or maybe help you even engage in the place that you live. Maybe a Nick and Kim's top 10 Michigan things to do this summer. But know this much, that we love you, we're praying for you, and we are here for you as you are coming and going.